This show is something of a journey through the past. And I'm doing this with an audio research preamp, an audio research SP3A that was made either in late 1973 or early 1974. And I'm listening to it and I am shaken and stirred by what I heard because it sounded really good in ways. I mean, I guess I had forgotten this sound because it is such a long time ago. And anyway, there's a lot of twists and turns in this story, but I'm going to start with this. In the mid 1970s, it looked like, tubes were done. The world had moved on. Even Macintosh, years earlier, had abandoned tubes, was fully committed to solid state. So along comes this company, Audio Research, headed by William Zane Johnson. And he believed, and he proved right, that no, the best tube engineering could actually surpass the best solid state in this time period, in the mid-1970s. That was, I think, the premise of audio research in the early days. And he was very successful because audio research grew and grew and grew, going up against the best of solid state in its time period. Yeah, so the gamble paid off. Audio research is still with us all these years later. Now this SP3A that I'm talking about, that I've listened to here for a couple of weeks, almost a month or so, it was loaned to me by Ben Haas. And he has a company, Novolux Stereophonics. And he brought this SP3A fully up to spec. It's a full restoration. And I got to say, he did a great job. I mean, this thing is over 50 years old. And I'm putting it in my system and enjoying the sound. Yes, they knew how to make great sounding electronics 50 plus years ago. Now, let's just take a breather for just a second, and I will point out that in 1973, 1974, this is long before digital entered the scene, right? This is the all analog time. And for most consumers, it was all about playing vinyl, about playing records. Now, of course, some people had reel-to-reel machines, but even then, it was a small minority. The dominant format at the time was vinyl. So the effort that went into designing a great phono stage for a preamp, well, that was it. There was no line stages in 1973. It was a full-function preamp, and the phono stage was where the action was. So you better make a great one. But as for the moving magnet inputs, I was using my turntable, the Technics SL1200G, with a Denon 103 cartridge. This one is this new version by OJAS, Devin Turnbull's company. I really like this cartridge. So it was a good way to get acquainted with the sound of the phono input on the SP3A. Now, of course, I did have to use a step-up transformer for the phono input, and I used, well, I'll just show you a bunch right here. And I'm playing records, and I'm thinking the amount of juice and power and emotion and soul and tone quality that's coming through the Audio Research SP3A is goosebump territory. It sounds very, very good. I want to cover a couple of things right away. First of all, in 1973, remote control was not a thing. Not for high-end audio, not for mainstream audio. Did not really happen. So yes, even though this is very much a high-end audio product, it does not have a remote control. Which leads me to the knob feel. Well, these knobs, they turn nicely, but they are plastic. Yeah, I know, it's plastic, but that's the way it rolled. And the next generation Audio Research preamp, the SP6, that one had the metal knobs. But this one, definitely plastic, and they don't feel that great. The push buttons on the front, those are also plastic. Yeah. It does have bass and treble controls and a contour, which is the same thing as loudness. Those are defeatable with the button on the front there, the tone control button. Yeah, I did not use them. I don't really it's not really my thing to go for tone controls. What else we got? It has a lot of inputs. Let's take a look at the back panel. It has 2 moving magnet inputs, and it has tape loops, 2 tape loops. Wow. Because reel-to-reel was important to some buyers at that time, definitely. And cassettes, etc., etc. So it's got that more than most modern preamps do in terms of facilities for tape. I'll give you that, and it has 2 main outputs. Let's take a look under the hood. Yes, you'll see it has 8 tubes. All of them are 12 AX7 tubes. Now, yes, I don't want to forget to mention this. This is not the quietest preamp I ever heard. No. Tube noise, tube rush, that is the hiss, that sort of thing. You can definitely hear it, but I did not find it intrusive, but it is there. Maybe a little teeny bit of buzz and hum. Yeah. Electronics in those days were not nearly as quiet as they are today. And because of what I just said before, I played a lot of vinyl. I also played digital through this, through the Tambaki, through the Mola Tambaki. Yeah, and it sounded great playing digital. But I just said, because it's a period correct kind of thing, I wanted to stick with vinyl for most of my listening tests. And I had a good time. Now, I mentioned this in the review I did just recently of the First Watt SIT4, solid state amplifier designed by Nelson Pass. And the synergy between the SP3A and the SIT4 was so good. It was so good. It was so meat on the bones. I mean, flesh and blood. You're listening to real music. You're not listening to a ghostly image here. No, this is really good. And this is with the Pure Audio Project Duet 15 open baffle speakers. That combination, that system was phenomenal. Now here's the thing. At this point, I wanted to compare the SP3 with my reference tube preamplifier, the linear tube audio microzonal. And this is a modern design, and I was curious to see how this would shake out. Well, kind of predictably so, really, because the LTA preamp was more transparent, more dynamic, much nicer top end, more extended top end, cleaner, deeper, tighter bass, that sort of thing. But it's interesting, in terms of imaging, okay, maybe the LCA's was more precisely focused. But the SP3A definitely had a big, open-sounding soundstage, definitely. And it didn't sound, to me at least, the SP3A did not sound overtly tubey, meaning mushy or soggy or slow or opaque or anything like that. No, it didn't sound that way at all. Matter of fact, I spent a lot of time mostly not doing comparisons, and never felt like I was really missing out. I wasn't, my inner audiophile brain wasn't saying, where's the transparency? Where's that tight bass? No, I was just taking the SP3A on its own merits and enjoying its musicality, especially with acoustic music, with classical music and jazz and stuff. It just sounds tonally so right. But yeah, I also played rock and roll. I played the Rolling Stones. I played Pink Floyd, and I was having a good time because this is a powerful sounding preamplifier, especially when I matched it with the 10 watt per channel First Watt SIT4 with the high sensitivity speakers with the Pure Audio Project Duet 15. And I'm rocking out, and I am digging it. And just the life force, that energy was very, very satisfying with the SP3A with the First Watt SIT4. And then it dawned on me. I'm listening to a 50-year-old design and realizing this proves the viability of high-end audio to last, to maintain its value over the long term, over, in this case, a half a century, that when you bought the good stuff in 1973 and you wanted to stick with it over the very, very, very long term, you could. I mean, you'd be tempted to do these other things, of course, but some people could just stick with it because it was satisfying them, because the way it delivered music was really pretty impressive and is still today. So yeah, what else lasts like high-end audio? The right stuff, well cared for, maintained, can have a lifespan, a useful lifespan of 50 plus years. Not something that just sits on a shelf to look pretty or something, or that's an object that was really cool. No, that you could still use this thing day to day as a daily driver and really, really enjoy it. I did swap cartridges in and out, and I was listening to the Lyra Delos, the Dynavector XX2, the Audiophon SPU, the Audiophon Cadenza Blue, all with step-up transformers. And the differences between those cartridges were easily resolved by this phono preamp. And by the way, for you people that get hung up on where the volume control is, the volume control is usually down. You know, I did not have to turn it up thanks to the step-up transformers. I really didn't have to push it that hard, you know, especially with the Pure Audio Project Duet 15. I was usually at 9 o'clock or the 10 o'clock position, never at half, never straight up. So there was plenty of gain in this old phono preamp, but you would definitely need to use a step-up transformer or a head amp if you wanted to use moving coil. I also squeezed in some time listening with the Magnepan 0.7x speakers, and the review is definitely coming, with the SP3A, and the power amp in that combination was the Pass Labs XA25. And I gotta say, I was very impressed with the synergy. Now, of course, some of you may know that Audio Research and Magnepan have a long history. It goes all the way back to the 1970s that they were, let's just say, aligned companies. They were both in Minnesota. They weren't very far from each other, and they shared a lot of the same goals. And I didn't feel, now these are very high resolution speakers, and I didn't feel like it was missing, like, oh my God, where's all the detail? No, no. Somehow it all worked out. So even that pairing, which I was a little concerned might not be ideal, it turned out to work just fine. Oh, I just want to make sure we're on the same page on this. I love it, I love it, I love it, but the SP3A is not state-of-the-art when it comes to high frequency extension, clarity on top, all that, or deep bass, power, impact, definition, all that. No, that's not what this preamp does. It's a bit more reserved than that. So just to be clear. I think I've said everything I needed to say about the Audio Research SP3A, except that this specific one that I have here was restored by Ben Haas for his company, which is called Novolux Stereophonics. He's selling this one for $4,000. You can contact Ben through his Facebook page, for the Novolux Facebook page, and I will link to that in the description below this video. And speaking of being impressed, yes, it is now time for the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Jens sent in this system. He lives in Sweden. He's a freshly baked audiophile. Okay. Turntable is a Riga P6 with an Ania Pro cartridge. Preamp is a Riga Aria Mark III. The amplifier is a Riga Athos. Speakers, those look familiar. Those are KEF R3 Metas on S3 stands. The sub is a Rel Classic 98. The DIY streamer is based on RP12 with Hi-Fi Berry Digi 2 Pro. The DAC is an old Italian M2 Tech Young with an external power supply. Cables, interconnect cables are Riga and AudioQuest, and the speaker cables are DIY based on Supra Rondo 4X4.0. Thank you, Jens. All right, we are back again. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and if you dig the channel, please consider joining my Patreon. And the thing about my Patreon is I've now made some changes. I'm making videos exclusively for my patrons. In other words, videos that will not be shown on this YouTube channel. It's just for paid patrons. Say that 3 times fast. And I just started doing that 2 months ago. And I'm really happy to do that, to offer you guys exclusive content. So you can join the Patreon for a couple of bucks a month, up to $50 or even $100 a month. And at the top 2 tiers, you and I will have a conversation every month at the beginning of the month. And that's kind of it. Anyway, the address is on the screen right now if you wish to join the Patreon. And with that, I can say my work here is at last complete. Thank you again for watching, and I really, really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon.